Turkish Airlines presents Business Africa.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Business Africa. I'm your host, Afolake Oinloye. The top stories this week. A landmark ruling by WAEMU Court against blockade of Mali is reshaping West Africa's economic landscape, highlighting the cost of sanctions and fragmented markets and the risk of lasting trade divisions in the region. Africa's tech funding is back, but with investors now demanding profitability. Founders are increasingly turning away from venture capital and embracing debt financing. And later, does love have a price tag? As Valentine's Day spending hits record highs, Zambians weigh romance against rising cost of affection. A court in West Africa has fired a powerful legal warning shot by striking down the 2022 economic blockade against Mali. The WAEMU Court has laid bare the economic costs of politicizing trade and reigniting a broader debate. Is regional integration in West Africa breaking apart or being forced to evolve?
On January 28, 2026, the West African Monetary Union Court of Justice handed down a ruling that shook things up in West Africa, finding that the extensive economic blockade imposed on Mali in 2022 was legally irregular. The verdict marks a victory for Bamako, but for the rest of the region, it serves as a warning. Political pressure can no longer replace market rules. When borders were closed and bank accounts frozen 4 years ago, the stated goal was to restore democracy. Instead, these measures have caused a lasting rift. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger have officially left ECOWAS, turning their backs on 50 years of shared history to found the Alliance of Sahel states. This is not just a diplomatic dispute, but an economic emergency. The founding project of West Africa was based on the free movement of goods and people, yet while Europe and Asia conduct more than 60% of their trade within their borders, intra-African trade remains stuck at just 15%. By weaponizing currency and borders, regional institutions have unwittingly stifled the trade they were supposed to protect. Now, as the Sahel charts a new course, the region faces a systemic risk. A fragmented market where the private sector, rather than policymakers, pays the ultimate price for inconsistent public policies. Which begs the question, is the dream of a unified African market fading away?
To unpack these implications of this ruling, we are joined by Madibo Mao Makalu, an economist. Thank you for joining us on the show. Now, what happens to countries in West Africa when institutions like ECOWAS and WAEMU lose policy coherence?
I think they have strayed away from their objective, which was mainly economic integration. In the early 90s, ECOWAS went through additional protocols, including good governance and democracy. And as you know, there were regime change in several West African countries, including the three countries I mentioned, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And there were sanctions. And these sanctions also included sanctions from WAEMU. And basically, these sanctions meant closing the border, whereas the first objective of economic integration is the free movement of people, goods, services, and investments. So basically, this was not in favor of regional integration and was not enhancing trade as the objectives were primarily stated. So I think our regional organizations should go back to their original objectives, which is clearly stated in SELECAF, in the African Free Trade Arrangement. So whereas we would want to create an internal market for 1.5 billion Africans.
Do sanctions drive reform in Africa or damage long-term growth? Who pays the real price, the government or the private sector?
When you close the borders, when necessities cannot come in, and when people cannot freely move, it's not the leaders that are affected. Even in the case of Niger, where the contract was interrupted with a Nigerian electricity firm. which was a private contract. It doesn't make sense because this affects livelihoods of people every day. I think if you want to sanction, you sanctions the people, that are responsible for the mayhem that was caused, and these are the leaders. And so you need to really focus on specific sanctions rather than general sanctions. And you cannot try to enhance economic integration and at the same time go on the wrong side, sideways, and try to do things that counter the promotion of economic integration, because we need the free movement of people and investments, like I said, in West Africa.
In an increasingly competitive global economy, what kind of economic leverage should African countries prioritize most?
Africa cannot continue to produce and export raw products. We need to go toward more structural transformation, meaning more value added, more industrializations, and also more value-added services. Because if you look at China, 98% of exports are manufactured goods, and intra-African trade is very low now. It's about 15%, whereas in Asia, it's over 60%, and in Europe and in the Americas, it's over 65%. So this is the key. We need to promote intra-African trade first, and then we can trade with other entities. But trade as it's going on now, exporting raw products and importing manufactured products is not a solution for us, a viable solution for us.
Mr. Makalo, thank you so much for those insights.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
For years, Africa's tech ecosystem chased growth at any cost. But after a funding winter, a rebound in 2025 is revealing a more disciplined landscape. One where leading founders are shifting away from venture capital and turning instead to debt as a path to sustainability.
The numbers for 2025 are striking. Capital is flowing back into Africa's tech sector, but the appetite for risk has changed. Investors are now demanding clear paths to profitability. Fintech remains dominant, attracting nearly 40% of all available funding. What's changing is how that money is raised. Debt financing hit a record $1.6 billion last year as founders increasingly turn away from equity dilution and toward more disciplined capital. For Pius as Group CEO, debt signals institutional maturity.
I usually say debt creates discipline. That is the first thing about debt. And then, but it's a more mature way, to me, as a mature way to grow. And it's the right thing. That's one of the reasons why we pursue it at Piazza. We launched our commercial paper through this particular program, and we could raise equity. We have the opportunity to do equity, but the question then we there ask is, why sell 20% of your business, of your company, for funding working capital when you can actually borrow and then sweat out the money efficiently?
As African fintechs solidify their role as the continent's digital backbone, the shift toward debt and discipline suggests that the next generation of unicorns won't be built on hype, but on hard-earned performance.
Love may be priceless, but in 2026, it certainly comes at a price. With global Valentine's Day spending projected to reach $29.1 billion, Zambia's growing commercialization of the holiday is sparking debate. Is affection measured by the heart or by the kwacha? Have a look.
From Lusaka's flower stalls to busy shopping aisles, the pressure to perform for Valentine's Day is palpable. While global consumers are expected to spend an average of nearly $200 to celebrate their loved ones this year, ordinary Zambians are grappling with the balance between real intentions and the rising cost of romance.
Valentine, I should mention that the price does not validate how much you love the person, but what you have done, the intention behind the gift is what really matters.
If you are in a relationship with someone who can afford expensive gifts and then they buy you a cheap one, it means that's how they look at you. But if you are with someone that can only afford as little, but they have made an effort.
If you don't have money, of course, you will not express your love towards somebody. You will not take them out. You will not buy them what they are supposed to receive. So it becomes so much unbearable, especially in the life of men, if you do not have money. You can't take them out. You can't buy not even a simple bouquet. So money is very essential.
While consumers debate the necessity of spending, for entrepreneurs behind the scene, the surge is a critical lifeline in the fiscal year.
Valentine's Day to us is very important because we make more sales on Valentine's Day than these other days. Yeah, it's very, very, very important to us.
You can't just base your relationship on love only, in as much as it is not everything, but I think it is an active ingredient of love.
As local businesses leverage these small packages to stay afloat, the commercialization of love is proving to be a double-edged sword. It drives essential economic growth, but does it enrich our relationships or merely our retailers? We leave that choice to you.
That brings us to the end of this edition of Business Africa. Thank you for watching. For more business stories and the latest updates, stay tuned to Africa News or visit us online at africanews.com. I'm Afolake Oyinloye. See you next time.
Business Africa was presented by Turkish Airlines.